New fallout today after former President Trump's false comments about the racial identity of Vice President Kamala Harris at the National Association of Black Journalists conference.
I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
For reaction, let's bring in the Republican governor of New Hampshire and friend of the show, Sununu. Thank you so much for being here. We have to ask you about this. I mean, the vice president called Trump's comments the same old show, adding the American people deserve better. And for the record, just so that we're all clear, Vice President Harris is always identified as black and Indian. So I'm curious, Governor, when you watch that, I was looking at you, but kind of what's your response to seeing that?
Well, it's awful, right? It's self-inflicted political wounds. I'm watching that going, what is going through his head that thinks that this is going to come off well? The most amazing thing, though, is, again, do you think this is going to be the most outrageous thing we hear in the next 100 days? I mean, that's the scary part, right? So one thing I've been trying to do is try to go out and say, look, you got to stop the personal attacks. Focus on issues. As Republicans, I think we win strong on issues of immigration and inflation and the stresses that Americans are feeling. We can win on those things. There's no need for any of this. It's offensive, it's unconstructive, and not only does it hurt, I think, the former president in his run, it hurts other Republicans, right? Whether you're running for governor or Congress or the school board, all of a sudden we all have to kind of answer for this kind of stuff. So best thing you can do is kind of put that kind of rhetoric in the rearview mirror and hopefully get back to an issues-based campaign, because that's what America deserves.
To that end, you have an op-ed out in today's New York Times. It's about attracting independent voters. And you write, quote, "The path to victory in November is not won through character attacks or personal insults, but you yourself, you've personally experienced the former president's style. He's called you a loser and politically dead. And last month, he called Vice President Harris dumb as a rock. Did you expect anything different this time around in this campaign?
Unfortunately not, right? What I do know is this campaign, America's in a very different place. And again, if we were in 2020, I think you'd see a similar result. But so many Americans are going to looking to go to that ballot box, looking for a change, right? Looking for some sort of disruption in Washington, some type of change, some type of validation that, no, the economy isn't great. Like the Harris administration keeps telling us, people can't pay their credit card bills. They can't pay their rent. Inflation is real. So they want some sort of validation there. And I think that's what they deserve from both candidates. I think obviously there's a strong, if you will, honeymoon period with this big change with Vice President Harris now taking the helm. I think for a month her polls are going to be great. Around just after Labor Day, the first polls are going to come out where the Americans kind of digest what this race is about. In the last 60 days, I do believe we'll get back to more issue-based stuff if, again, we can have candidates that focus on issues and stop with the personal attacks. There's about 10% of undecided voters, and they're truly undecided. They want, I believe, and I've talked to folks that have said, I've never voted for Donald Trump, but I want to change. He's just making it really hard to get there. So if the Republicans can move on and as a team, not just with Donald Trump, but as a team, because the surrogates do it too. We've heard it from J.D. Vance. We've heard it from others. Move on from the personal stuff. Allow some validation of what Americans are feeling. I think we can be rewarded as Republicans and see real policy change in November.
But how realistic do you think that is to see that shift? I mean, you have been critical of the former president. You were on the campaign trail with Nikki Haley. We heard her repeatedly talk about the chaos that sort of follows him.
And we were right.
And that that hurts Republicans down ticket. Right. So do you think there's really that is going to be any different?
I'll say this: nobody can tell the former President Trump what to do or what to tweet. But what he does care about is poll numbers. When I've had conversations with him, and where's my polls? Where's my polls? What are my polls? If he's looking at his poll numbers and looking at the slip and the shift, I believe there's an opportunity for him to self-correct, realize, hey, when you were disciplined in that debate, when you didn't make it completely personal, when you showed some restraint, you were successful. People believed in because you stayed issue-based.
Quickly, before we let you go, you did endorse Nikki Haley in the Republican primary. You said yourself you chose not to run because defeating Trump was more important, but now you're supporting him, you intend to vote for him. Yeah. What changed?
Well, it's all about policy, right? It's all about results. I don't like the character issues. I don't like the bombastic. I don't like the offensiveness. But there are real changes that have to happen in this country. Americans are feeling real struggles. And one thing I try to tell people is don't judge other people based on how they're going to vote. There's a family out there, some of your viewers, that can't pay their rent, struggling to make ends meet. They might want to vote for a change just because the inflation is crushing them. Or folks in this own city who are seeing the immigration crisis and the homelessness crisis really hit epic proportions say, I'm willing to accept the negativity of those character flaws because I just want to change. So I'm the same way. I think government can be results driven. I just try to do those two things. Focus on issues. Let's not judge each other based on each other's priorities. We don't know each other's backstory. We don't know where you're coming from. Let's just respect that. And that brings the temperature down and I think the conversation forward in terms of where do we want America to go. And then you let the chips fall where they may. I'm not here to tell anyone to vote for Donald Trump or the Vice President Harris. That's your choice and your story. One thing I can promise, the sun is going to come up on November 6th. It's all going to be okay. And I really, the world's democracy isn't ending one way or the other. Our institutions are strong. We might disagree with policy and the individuals, but America is going to be in good shape.
New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, thank you for joining us here in Times Square.